G'day guys, it's Will from Rosebud Mowers. We have some pretty exciting news here today. We've got Ben from Catch Pro's brand new V-Ride Scag up on the hoist, teamed up with the 48-inch Velocity deck. Before we send the machine up to Brizzy, I told him I'd do him a bit of a favour and fit out his Advanced Chute blocker and also a Catch Pro bracket so he can run his Catch Pro system on his brand new V-Ride. I'll tell you what, this thing's a beast. So we'll jump straight into it. The first thing we're going to do is take off the chute that's on the machine. All I need for this is a 13mm spanner and a 13mm socket on a ratchet. I use a battery ratchet because they're just nice and quick. So we'll go and rip that off and then we'll meet you back with step 2. Alright guys, welcome back. So step 2, we've taken the discharge chute off the machine now. Before we go any further in adding the Advanced Chute System, we are going to add his Catch Pro bracket. Now I do find this quite important because when installing the Catch Pro bracket, obviously, you know, we don't want anything to be hung up on it. We want to have nice clear spacing for the bracket for the Advanced Chute System. So look, Ben has made this design super easy to fit to any machine. This particular bracket, basically all I'm going to do is make sure the edge of this is nice and flush with the unit or the edge of the deck. And also I'm going to come back here and make sure that the edge is sitting quite flush to the back of the deck as well. I've already double checked that the catcher itself sits nice and true on the deck, it's nice and flush, and will be quite a nice fitment. So all I'm going to do now is just make sure I've got it nicely tucked in at the back. My edge is nice and flush all the way along. The hardware that comes with the kit is 2 bolts and 2 lock nuts, and again you just need a 13mm spanner, 13mm on a ratchet or a drill or an impact driver, and then you're just going to need obviously a drill to be able to drill the holes. I'm using an 8mm, and if it is tight then I might bring that to 8.5 if necessary. Nice sharp drill bits definitely help as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab a center punch, and I'm just going to center punch the placement of my holes. I'm going to try and separate them out as much as I can. There are a number of different holes in the back of this bracket here as well. So I'm just going to go one at this end and one at this end here. So I'm just going to make sure it's nice and flush again. Bring it as far forward as possible. It's nice at the back. Not really going to go any further in. There. And I will just center punch those holes. One there, and then one there. And then I'm just going to drill them out, chuck the hardware in there, and then move on to step 3. So I'll meet you back in a second. Alright guys, so now that we've got the Catch Pro bracket mounted on, I'm just going to double check the fitment. I have already put it on and made sure that the discharge is lining up really nicely with the opening on the catcher, but we'll just double check anyway before we go any further. Right now it's the easiest time to make any adjustments if we need. So I'll grab my catcher, I'll chuck it on. And fitment wise, you can't get any better. As you can see, the Catch Pro bracket's super easy to install, literally 2 holes. Tighten the bolts down nice and tight. So now that we've got the Catch Pro bracket installed, that's the easy part out of the way. We're going to do the Advanced Chute System now. So if you come right here, we'll show you what is included in the kit. Firstly, we've got our bracket, our adaptation bracket, and that's what we're going to lay out next. As you can see, the kit comes with a bunch of different mounting software, including different spacers, pretty much everything you need to put this kit on. Again, the tools are super basic, spanners, a couple of spanners, and a ratchet and a drill. Center punch helps as well. So what we're going to do next, we're going to mark out how this is going to fit up, which we'll come back to in the next step. Alright, welcome back. So I've just got myself all nice and set up. So I've got the Advanced Chute System laid out. I kind of do this to make it easier on me, just so I can see what spaces I've got available, what bolts go where. I've got some chocks, some timber chocks, which I'm going to use to level the deck in just a second. Get everything nice and laid out, see what you've got. It makes a big bag of bolts look a bit daunting, just being in a bag. If you lay them out like this, you can sort of get a bit of a feel for, you know, okay, it's actually not that bad. There's only a few different spaces and things like that. So first thing what I'm going to do is grab a timber block and chuck it just on the edge hanging half inside the deck and half out. You'll see why in just a second. I'm going to grab my other 2 blocks. For this particular deck, I'm going to put one over this side, just so I can get it nice and level. And then I'll chuck one on the back here as well. Alright, so I'll make sure that timber block's hanging half in the deck, half out. And then I'm just going to lay it down. Chuck the deck down to its lowest point. Make sure nothing's hanging up on it, so move that blade around. Alright, and let's just have a quick squeeze. So I'm pretty good. I've got that timber block on the back of the deck there. That's nice and tight in there. I've got that block sitting out there as well. What this does is it gives us a perfect level for the bottom of our chute blocker to sit on, which it's then easier to work out what our spacing is going to be. I pre-assembled our bracket to our chute, just loosely fitted the bolts, nothing extreme, just more so I can lay it there, find out what spaces I'm going to use, and then see where it's going to sit in conjunction to the edge of the deck. Now, Ben's Catch Pro bracket makes it super easy to get a nice straight line to see where it's going to land. So if you come around the back here, you actually have a look. So I'm going to try and get it somewhere flush on the back of his bracket, but also flush on the front of the deck here. So that there is just about perfect. That looks quite good, I reckon. It's nice and flush on the front of the deck here. And as you can see, the chute blocker is actually sitting no lower than the deck. Because obviously if we had the chute blocker all the way down, every time we lower our deck, it's just going to scalp into the grass and rip up some nice holes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see how my bracket is going to be sitting with the deck, make sure there's nothing in the way, it's not going to hang up on anything. Get the bracket nice and level with the different spaces provided. So as you can see, there's a ton of different spaces to go on the back of the bracket to make sure it's sitting nice and level. So I'll use a combination of these. Again, every deck design is going to be different, and hey, you might need to slightly modify some of these bigger spaces to make it work. Depends how much precision you want. I like them to be dead on perfect, so sometimes I modify these to the mill just to make it dead on perfect. So the next step that I'm going to do is get that bracket on the back of the chute block here, nice and level, and then I'm going to drill one hole. So when I get the spaces in and I'm happy and got my first hole set out, I'll get back. Alright guys, so we're back. We've got our first hole set out on the Advanced Chute blocker. So if you come up here and have a look, I always do the furthest hole to the back, or you go the furthest hole at the back first. So I've actually got my rear bracket here set up with one large, one medium, and one really small spacer. That's worked out the best for me. The bracket's nice and flush. The discharge plate is nice and flush. The bracket's nice and level. Now to mark the holes, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. A center punch is usually a good way. To get it super accurate, I don't move it from this state. I leave the spaces in there because I want to get it perfect. So what I usually do is I go over to my apprentice's toolbox and I steal one of his drill bits because I'd never do this with my own. So I've got his drill bits out. We better be quick because he's in the shop. He'll be back soon and see me destroying his drill bits. I'm going to grab an 8mm drill bit and I'm going to pop that in the hole. So if you come back here and have a look, it's a nice snug fit and we can go straight down into the hole. Now some of you may cringe when I do this, but again, use your apprentice's drill bits, don't use your own. So I'm quickly going to double check the bracket sitting really nicely. I usually go center of hole, so I've got plenty of adjustment backwards and forwards. And just close your eyes for a second. Just hit that nice and snug and take it out, put his drill bits back real quick before he sees that you just hit one of his drill bits with a hammer. And that is the perfect center punch. It just gets it spot on. Mind you, it did move a little bit, so I will double check that I've hit that in the correct position, but it's usually the best way to go. Just don't get caught using someone else's drill bits. I'm going to drill this hole, pop the first bolt in, and I'll be back. Alright guys, so we've got that first hole all drilled. I put the bolt in. I have tightened it up firm, but not tight, because I still want to be able to move everything around and make sure that it's all level and flush. I've set up my second hole that I'm going to do now. And so the step for the second hole is exactly the same as the third hole that you're going to do. So we'll skip over the third hole because it is the same step. As far as placement goes for where you're putting your bolts, if you want to come and have a look, the first one I always try and do is the furthest one back on the bracket. And then I try and get one on the farthest side of the bracket, and then I try and get one about middle. So that one there is going to be my middle bracket hole, okay? And then again, you're going to have to use varying spaces. So this bolt hole is all the way down on the deck here. This one is up on the ridge of where the flap was attached to, and then this one will be all the way down as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, again, I've stolen my apprentice's drill bit. Grab my handy hammer here. I'm going to just double check that it's all nice and flush before I go ahead and mark it. Looks really nice and level. I'm happy with that. Just going to move that bracket slightly and just give it a good tap, and that's your center punch there. Again, don't use your own drill bits for that. Easiest thing to do, I don't ever take this bolt out again. Okay, so this stays in now, and like I said, it's all movable because I haven't tightened it up 100%. The cool thing about leaving that in is now you've got yourself a little pivot, so you move it away, let's pick up your spacer, you move it away. If you come in and have a look, I've got my center punch hole here. Cool. So I know once I've drilled that hole and put the bolt in, all I simply do is pivot that back, pop that bolt in, mark my third hole, and then you're done. You're done for drilling holes in your deck anyway. Snug your bolts up, and then we'll move on to the next step. So you'll come back and this will all be bolted on, spaced up correctly. See you in a minute. Alrighty, so we have got all 3 holes drilled and set. There is a little bit of adjustment that I need to do. But I will leave the final bit of adjustment until the end, until I've got my 2 hinge bolts set and nice and tightened. So what I'm going to do right now is just take them back out because just need to lubricate the nylon. They do come with a little packet of grease. I tend to just put my own grease on them. And I dropped one of the spacers, so give us a second. Alright, so I've got my nylon spacers out. So I'll just squirt a bit of grease on it. Don't, go a huge amount. It's really not necessary to put heaps on it, but just a little bit on both sides. And then chuck them back in, like so. And that just allows nice free movement. It is also a good idea as sort of time goes on. I find inox is sort of a better solution than grease. I usually just give them a bit of spray once a week or so. So I'm going to do that to both sides and then tighten them up nice and snug. As you can see, I've also added in the spring bolt as well. So I've popped in the spring bolt. I've got to put the other bolt on the other side of that so the spring can then hinge from here to here. So when we come back, I'll have those nice and snug. I'm going to do some little bits of adjustment behind the scene to make sure the chute block is actually sitting nice and flush and everywhere it needs to. And then we'll come back. I'm going to show you a really cool trick on how to put the spring on as well. So give me a couple of minutes and I'll be right back. Alrighty, so we're approaching one of our last steps, and that is going to be adding the handle on. So with the handle, again, you get these nylon washers. So what I'll do is just add a bit of grease quickly. So add a little bit of grease on the nylon washer. Like a bit of grease, one there. And then I'm going to grab my handle. I'm going to slide it on to the large thread there. They can be a little bit stubborn. Grab my other my other nylon bushing, and then in the kit you'll get quite a large nylock as well. So we're just going to put that on there. We're not going to tighten it down just yet. Okay, then we're going to grab our bolt for our spring and our handle, and we're just going to slide that through. I've tightened this all up. It's pretty firm at the moment. I'll do my final adjustments. Before I tighten anything or put the spring on, I'm just going to make sure the movement is quite good and streamlined. So that's nice and easy. I'm going to grab my retaining bolts for the spring and the handle, and I'll just chuck them on, and I'll show you a really cool way how to get a spring on. So I'll pop them back on, and then I'll set up and I'll show you how to chuck this spring on. Then we're pretty much done. So bear with me. Alrighty, so we've got the handle bolts installed. I haven't tightened that down yet, just yet. That'll be the last step that I do. Putting springs on is never an easy thing. I see a bunch of guys using spanners and all that sort of stuff. This goes with any spring. If your deck belt comes off and you chuck your spring back on, your drive springs, any spring, this is the easiest way to do it. All you contractors, or generally anybody with a mower, has whippy cord, or the slipper cord. So what we're going to do is chuck our spring on one side. So we'll put that onto the one side here. Okay. And I've just put like a nice little bend in my whippy cord, and all I'm going to do is grab it and put a bit more grip hold on it and pull it on nice and tight like so. And then your whip cord is super easy to get out. You just pull it out just like so, and you're pretty much done. So check it out, fully installed, nice and smooth, nothing's hitting. Pretty much done. So it's not too hard. You follow the steps that we've done and you're going to find life pretty easy. Like I said, lubricate your nylon bushings every now and then with a bit of inox or WD-40 CRC, and yeah, you guys are good to go. You're all done. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.